Recently, over the past couple months across all of my social medias, I have been given a lot of wonderful questions from all of my followers that really made me stop and think, that really made me think, wow, this question is really good. I have to really think about this. And I answered them as they came, but I felt that the value of them was kind of lost in just text answers. And so I have decided to compile these questions into a list and put them on a YouTube video that I'm calling the Transgender Questionnaire. Now, some of these questions are pretty out of the box and some very impressive questions. And I feel that it's very pertinent to this channel, and the value in them is showing different sides of thinking, such as some of these questions I personally would have never thought about. I'm like, wow, I haven't thought about that in years, things like that. And they're all transition related, but I feel it's very pertinent and there is a lot of value in these questions. And so we are going to begin the first of a new series called the Transgender Questionnaire. And this is going to be part 1, and it's going to be 5 questions where I elaborate for about 3 to 4 minutes per question and put them in a YouTube video for all of you to talk about. And please keep the conversation going in the comment section. Half the value of these YouTube videos is the comment section, because all of you bring me a lot more topics to talk about, as well as some of your own lived experiences, which is always extremely valuable. Now, let's get into the video. However, remember to like and subscribe, hit those comments in the comment section, hit the notification bell to never miss a video, and give us super thanks if you're feeling extra. And let's begin the part 1 of the Transgender Questionnaire. So for our first question is, can you be trans without surgery? And the short answer is yes. Surgery does not make you transgender. Surgery fixes body dysmorphia. And so I have to kind of get into a little bit of what is being trans. And trans stands for transgender or transsexual. There's a lot of difference on those terms, and they sometimes go hand in hand. If you want to talk about the differences of those two terms in the comment section, please. But essentially, transgender is you are living as a female, where if you're transsexual, your goal is to be a woman. But as I've talked about in another video, I'll never be a woman, I'll just be the closest thing to a woman. Now, when it comes to being transgender, there's 2 things to talk about. There's gender dysphoria and there's body dysmorphia. Gender dysphoria is the feeling of unease that you have in your birth skin, meaning I was born a man, but ever since a very early age, I never felt like I was a guy. I didn't feel that I fit into that male stereotype, as I've talked about in recent videos. And so I have decided to transition to solve a lot of that stuff, because to me, it feels more natural to do my hair and makeup than it ever did to tie a tie or shave a beard or anything like that. It feels a much more natural gradient process that I was just more attracted to. And then for body dysmorphia is how you look at your body in comparison to the women around you. And a lot of this is caused from social, cultural factors, as I've talked about in a recent video, especially with looking at Victoria's Secret models from an early age. That kind of puts an unhealthy image in your mind of what a woman is supposed to be. And so the gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia is the 1-2 punch that kicks your ass. And surgery is used to solve a lot of the body dysmorphia, especially when it comes to certain feminine characteristic things, such as feminine faces, feminine chest, and the bottom surgery. The bottom surgery is one of the biggest fixes with that. And so the long and short of it is, yes, you can definitely be transgender without surgery, but the surgery helps you along in your transition process. And I can understand why you asked this question, because when I was pre-transition, I was looking at these absolutely beautiful women on social media, such as Elena Genevieve, La Demi, Gigi Gorgeous, Victoria Vixen, Adia, Sonique. I was looking at all these beautiful women and oh my God, how did they get their boobs? How did they get their faces done? And then I read about them on their plastic surgeon's website, and I'm like, oh, okay, they went through a lot of plastic surgery to get to that point. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And so I can understand why you think that you need surgery to be transgender, but you don't need it. You are trans regardless if you have surgery. In fact, there's a lot of transgender women that are just completely fine with the HRT changes that they have, and they don't even want to pursue surgery due to a fear of being put under anesthesia or a fear of needles. Then there's also the cost factor. Getting your boobs done, the average cost is $7,000 to $10,000. FFS, depending on what you want, can go up to $30,000, $50,000. And then the bottom surgery is also pretty expensive too. So you can 100% be trans without doing surgery. So on to our next question of, is it difficult to find a job as a transgender woman? This thing is a loaded question. Oh my God. So, suffice to say, I would say yes, it is hard, but I have to kind of get a roundabout way. Now, the problem with being transgender right now is it's like a political talking point, and most people have probably never met a transgender person, because I think we account for like 1.5 million people of the US population, which is tiny percentage. So you really don't see that many transgender people on there. And the ones that are shown about on political circles, especially in like media, are kind of like the outlier ones. Like most of us just want to live our lives, be transgender, and just go from there. But then you have the outliers, the political spectrums, the ones at rallies, the ones just forcing transgender down people's throats that are putting a bad image of being transgender in people's minds. And most people are not going to meet a transgender person, and so that's what they think being transgender is. And the problem is, those people that are not the ones that are watching this, they're the ones on the other side of the desk in a job interview. So you're sitting there like, hello, my name is Nicole. I am a transgender woman. They're like, oh, you're trans? Yes. Okay. And then that can go one of two ways. Then they can be like, well, okay, we're not really interested, which is technically against the law in most things, because that's part of like gender identity. Most companies have a pretty good gender identity clause in there that's saying that you need to be positive. And then there's also the way of like, oh, they can just say, okay, who cares? What are your qualifications? And you go from there. Now, for me, I work at a grocery store. It wasn't because of choice. It was mostly because my degree is a hard field to get into. I have a communications degree, and it's very useful, but to a lot of companies, and this day and age where it seems like everybody has a college degree, it's almost becoming like a high school diploma situation where everybody has a college degree, that it's hard to find a job, especially when you need to find a job to pay rent, and rent's expensive where I live in Boise. Car payments, nail appointments, hair appointments, insurance, car payments, phone bills, it all adds up. So you need to find a high paying job. And the problem is, a lot of those high paying jobs, you don't see many transgender people in there. I know of a couple of people who are transgender that have extremely good paying jobs, but they transitioned while in those jobs to begin with. I know this one girl, she is a district administrator for a school district in Ohio, and she got that job 6 years ago, and she started transition 2 years ago. So she was just kind of factored into there. My job was more or less, I wanted to work someplace that was no-brainer enough, that gave me enough pay that I can be transgender there and no one's gonna care. The job I work for sponsors the Boise Pride event. They have a very good gender identity clause. Their insurance covers transitional surgeries. And everyone there likes me. I'm a good employee. I go to work. I cause no issues at all. And they have no issue with me. And recently I've actually changed my name at my job. So my name tag now says Nicole. And everyone's like, do you prefer Nikki or Nicole? I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's your choice. So is it hard to find a job? Yes, but you just have to find the right jobs. And here, even in Boise, Idaho, which is a very red state that you would not think to be like transgender friendly, there is a lot of people who are open to the transgender people, as long as you don't push it. I don't push my being transgender on people. I don't view it as like some mental disease. It's just like, yeah, it's a part of my life, but I'm here to clock in and do my job first. So it's a loaded question, and I could go on for this forever, but the short of it is yes, but it depends on the company. Okay, now on to our third question of, how did you know who you really were? Now, this is another loaded question. I could talk about this forever and ever and ever, and I have basically spent 51 videos talking about my transition on this YouTube channel. And you can watch my first one here of my coming out story and how I talk about this. So I'm just gonna say, there's nothing like really like signifying. It's more of like a combination of factors of how you know. When I was younger, I always tell this story. When I was younger, I was at a Mervyn's in Central California, and I saw a white bra and was like, oh, that's really pretty. That's the first instance that I remember. But I also remember walking down the Barbie aisle at Target, playing with the little flurry little like scarf things that they have, and looking at the dresses thinking, wow, what would that look like on me? And then my grandma I remember looking through the Macy's catalog. Yes, I'm that old. I remember looking through the Macy's catalog and I saw the Christmas bell dress from like 2001 in it for like little girls. And I was like, oh, I want to wear that. That's super cute. And my grandma bought me a Jasmine costume and I put that thing on and I remember it still to this day what it felt like. And there's just a combination of factors that you see and just that you feel. It's like something that you feel more or less. It's not something that is caused to you. Being transgender isn't caused by not a one factor, it's mostly caused by multiple factors. Such as I also remember in high school when I was trying to like discover myself, I was a hardcore cross-dresser by this point, spending all of my time cross-dressing. There was this one girl I went to high school with and she was wearing a black crop top and a blue leather miniskirt with like Vans on. And I was like, I remember that still to this day, what it looks like exactly. And I was like, I want that. And that's just kind of how it is. You just start accumulating events and experiences where you're eventually like, do I want to be a girl? And that's kind of the thing that you think about. So you cross-dress to kind of get an idea of what it would be like being a chick, where you put on makeup, you put on like outfits, and you're just like, wow, I can look like this. And that to me was the craziest part. Like I thought that my male body was unavailable to wear female clothing, but then I put on female clothing and it fit perfectly. And you just start doing the process and eventually you just kind of reach a point where you're almost living like a double life, where you are a closeted person beyond all manner of the word, but you're presenting male, but you're afraid to tell people. So you start telling a few people and they accept you. You may go out once in a while and be like, oh, this feels right. I remember once I went out to Macy's back when I worked there, and I walked in there in like some outfit and everyone was like, wow, you're so beautiful, you're so amazing. And I felt like love. And my parents, they're like, well, you're gonna get beat up. I don't want to have the hospital call me that my kid was beat up for cross-dressing. And in my experiences, I was like, I never experienced any of that stuff. I mostly experienced positivity from both male and female of all ages. And I've learned most people really don't give a fuck if you're transgender or not. It's just the crazy political ones talking about it. And so all of these factors eventually come in where you eventually kind of reach like a breaking point to like a critical mass. And you're like, I want to transition. I want to be female. And then you transition, and ever since I've transitioned, my life's completely different. It's amazing. But you just kind of start accumulating events until you really know who you are. And then during your transition, you start coming up with your style, you start coming up with your makeup routine. Like this makeup routine I have done, I don't know how many times, I can do it in like 10 minutes, that you just start knowing it. And there's really no way to know who you really were until you are that person. And now I am that person. And maybe once I get a couple more surgeries, well, maybe once I start surgeries, and maybe once I kind of like just tighten up the transition a little bit and work on the voice, I'll finally be like, yeah, this is me all along. Now for a little bit more lighthearted question of what fashion era inspires you. So I would say my aesthetic is definitely Barbie. You can see that on my Instagram. You can definitely see the like bougie Barbie aesthetic. Like I'll wear heels to freaking McDonald's and Chipotle type shit. And I would say my aesthetic is definitely that Y2K. I am one of those skinny Britney Spears, Jessica Simpson vibes from the early 2000s, like Y2K, like this top, this is a total Y2K top. And that to me is like my big one. It was like super girly, it was super flamboyant, it was just feminine, it was all about body, it was all about toned, it was all about skinny bitches. And that is definitely my look. Skinny girls with big boobs. That was the Y2K vibe. And I would say it's also like 2016 makeup. Like, I don't know if any of you have like followed makeup circles and shit, but like 2016 makeup is when like contour came out. You had Anastasia glow kits. Like that was a fucking vibe. Like that was a vibe. And my YouTube channel videos about makeup don't get nearly the topics, but you see my true personality in those videos. Then I would also say like fashion inspiration is also probably like 1980s. Like I have two types. I have the cute girl in crop top and shorts, and then I have the romper vibes. Then I have like, I'm gonna go out to Sunday brunch type thing in like a cute romper and like sandals. I love rompers. I think they're super adorable. They're very tuck friendly because they're super loose down there. So even if your tuck falls out, it won't show. And that's just kind of like my vibe. I also kind of like 1940s vibes. I'm definitely a World War II history buff. And some of those like skirts and outfits are really cute. And I remember in this one episode of the WandaVision show that they showed like 1960s hair, and it was like this big blowout hair. And I'm like, that's super cute. I want to know how to do that. So I would say my fashion advice and my like interest in fashion is really like the Y2K vibes. It's when I was growing up and seeing these girls online, like it's the Playboy models and like the flannel shirts, like, you know, pushing up their boobs. It's the skinny jeans, it's the Vans, it's the heels, it's the crop top vibes, it's the straight hair, it's the 2016 makeup vibes with the big hoop earrings. Like that is my vibe 100%. And so the short answer is Y2K, but it's kind of a combination of different things taken from multiple fashion eras. So for our last topic, but not the last in the series, is I want to transition, but I feel too manly. Okay, this one's interesting. This one's a very good question, I feel, and it definitely relates to my most recent video of how I feminize my body. Now, when you're a guy, there's a lot of different things. Like sometimes genetically, you're just gonna be a big guy. Like I know of just some guys that are just big. They've got big bones, they've just got big chest. I was not one of those. I was super skinny. I was an ectomorph. I was skinny with like no fat on me at all, but I had a lot of body hair. Thank you, Mom, for all of my body hair, but thank you, Mom, for my super thick hair on my top. And I had a lot of body hair, and that gave me so much freaking dysphoria that you wouldn't even believe. I hated that body hair, and I still freaking grow facial hair, which pisses me off to no avail. But if you feel you're too manly, start looking up girls that are transgender pre-transition, because sometimes you're pretty amazed. Like I have known many transgender girls that had like full beards, big, giant, bulging muscles and all that. Think of Gabby, the WWE wrestler that's really popular on TikTok. She was like the definition of what a dude is. Giant, bulging muscles, just overkill, manly, you know, badass tattoos, just like a dude vibe. And now she's just like the most beautiful little freaking gorgeous nutrition lady you could ever imagine. She's got her blonde hair, she does her makeup, she's had FFS, she's had her breast surgery done, she's lost a lot of that muscle mass. Her goal is body feminization. In fact, she's actually a personal trainer for a lot of transgender girls. And so Gabby's a great example, and I'll link her Instagram in the comment section if you want to go look at that, because that pretty much is the definition of this question. You also have a lot of other girls that, so being body dysmorphic with your body and being gender identity is, there's a lot of times this idea that I'm going to go so male that it'll just override my gender identity. And so a lot of transgender girls that I've talked to have gone into like deep male pits where they've gotten multiple tattoos, they become jacked bodybuilders, they become bearded, roided out dudes, but it's still lingering in the back of their mind. It's still present at all times. And that's the thing that you see with a lot of the older generation, because being transgender was not nearly as friendly back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so you see a lot of gender identity problems just kind of being pushed under the rug and not talked about. You had cross-dressing, and that was seen as like a really bad thing that only people do in the back rooms. And so you had a lot of transgender girls that pushed it to the side, that was afraid of being transgender, for rightly so. There was really not a whole lot of support system back then. There was, but only in like major cities with large LGBT populations such as San Francisco, and even then it was kind of hard too. But now that it's become more front and center, a lot of companies have that gender identity clause that we recently talked about. They feel that they can finally be themselves. One of the comments on one of my YouTube videos was a 79-year-old transgender woman that is starting HRT at 79 years old. That's impressive and that's amazing. Like that is just truly amazing. And there's a lot of times where your age and how long you've been male really affect your ability to transition. a lot of older girls face the problem of they were male for 40 years of their life and suddenly they are trying to become female at a pretty advanced age when their body isn't nearly functioning with the hormonal balance nearly as much. I started when I was 24, where my body was essentially in peak healthy condition, and so I can develop more feminine attributes, and I was already a very feminine person to begin with, so it's a lot easier for me versus other people. But you really just have to like commit to it. If you commit to being a feminine girly girl, you can do it. Gabby's a great example. I can link a lot of other girls that I can think about off the top of my head that were these roided out bearded dudes that have become extremely beautiful women. You don't have to just be an ectomorphic, skinny, young person to be transgender. And that's the thing that you see a lot of on, like Elena Genevieve, Gigi Gorgeous. They all started when they were like in their 20s, like their early 20s. And so it affected them extremely fast because the closer you are to puberty, the more HRT affects you. And so, yes, you can be transgender even if you feel you're too manly, because there's a lot of beauty appointments out there that can fix a lot of that stuff. Hey honeys, thank you for watching that YouTube video. I would say I actually like doing this video because this is a completely different format than I normally do. Normally it's like, I write a script for it and go from there. This was more just like ad hoc, let's think about this. And a lot of the things that I think about every day were very pertinent in these questions. Like I've thought about my job, I thought about body feminization because I'm too male. These are questions that I myself have thought about over the last couple of years, but I've never really thought to talk about them on a YouTube channel. So I really like doing this video because it gave me a completely different way to talk about these subjects. And I hope you enjoyed them. This was fun, actually. I enjoyed making this YouTube video, and I'm gonna enjoy editing it because I'm gonna put in a bunch of pictures and everything. So I'm really excited for this. I hope you found some value in these questions, and if you want your questions to be featured in the next YouTube video, please put them down in the comment section. I will endeavor to put different topics per video, try to keep it lighthearted with some serious topics and then some lighthearted one like the fashion one. The fashion one was a fun one to talk about. And so thank you for watching this YouTube video, and we will be putting out a transgender questionnaire part 2 pretty soon. So thank you all. This has been Nikki Chanel. Thank you for liking and subscribing, putting those comments in the comment section, hitting that notification bell to never miss a video, and giving a super thanks because you are an extra. And so thank you all. Have a wonderful day. And I'll see you on the next video.